All right, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Thanks for tuning into an exciting episode of Barefoot Tour Guide Star Wars Threat Detected. I'm your host and game master, Smuggler's Paradise, but today you can call me GM Tony. Now, you might be questioning why exactly you're hearing my dulcet tones instead of Garrett's. Well, sometime during the long campaign of Threat Detected, we decided to split the party and go into two separate ways, one group going to Almas and one group going to Coruscant to follow different threads of the campaign. While we were kind of doing that, Garrett thought, well, it'd be interesting to do some side missions. So he approached me, another Star Wars GM, and said, hey, Tony, why don't you hang up Tor for a little bit while we're split, and you can run a adventure module with Barriss rescuing his family and getting to know them and, finding some character arcs for Barriss. I said, sure, why not? So I wrote a few session little adventure for them, and you're about to hear the first part of it. This is the Threat Detected podcast, which provides radio drama style actual play of the Star Wars saga Dawn of Defiance campaign, including some side modules such as my original adventure, which I'm running for Zach, Josh, and yes, even Garrett. But first, BB-8, I know you have a map, but do you have any mail? We got an email from Angelic Doctor, a longtime supporter of the show. He wrote, in one of the Order 66
You don't need to read his thing.
Okay.
You just have to answer it.
Okay. Well, Angelic Doctor, set pieces can be very useful if you are looking for a way to spice up your campaign. Basically, what I like to think of set pieces as is anytime you are watching a movie and you don't hear any dialogue, you just hear lots of explosions. That can be as little as someone running through a battlefield. It can be as huge as a massive space battle with the galaxy on the line. One of the things that I like to do first when I'm trying to design my set pieces is figure out where they're taking place. If it's going to be a big room, what kind of big room? Is it a warehouse with lots of boxes, crates, shelves? Is it, a space battle, kind of like the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, where there's a mass of battleships flinging fire all across at each other? Or is it something a little bit more personal, inside someone's own mind? They're facing their own fears. What can you dredge up from their past in order to confront them with? So, there's a lot of opportunities that you have for trying to spice things up. For example, let's take, an example from one of the Star Wars movies. Say you're in Empire Strikes Back, you're on the planet of Hoth, and you know that you're going to have a combat, a big battle. Well, you know that the Empire is going to come crashing down and crush the rebellion. So you go, what would be really interesting? Maybe the Empire has big, huge walkers that are nigh impregnable to your blasters, that are marching towards your troops as they're sitting ducks with weapons that can't fight against it. How interesting does that make things? As the base is falling apart, you have your main characters, Han, Leia, running through the base as it's collapsing, not even necessarily in the combat, but at the same time very much a part of it and dealing with the consequences of it. Look to your favorite movies, books, comics, video games. The Uncharted series, I can't recommend enough for its big set piece moments. You can kind of just take a lot of cues from that. The things that excite you when you watch those things are the things that are going to excite your players too. Okay. Getting a hold of us is much easier than getting a hold of Luke. First, we're a Misdirected Mark production, available at misdirectedmark.com. You can post messages there for us, and the probe droids will get them to the right people. Garrett runs threatdetected.com, which covers the gambit of Barefoot Tour Guide Presents podcast and his writing projects. You can always email Garrett there, gmg@threat-detected.com. We have a Facebook group. You can chat with me at Threat Detected Podcast. I'm on Twitter at D20Smuggler. Garrett's at GarrettCrow1. Garrett's also on Google. Look for D20 Threat Detected at gmail.com, but Garrett doesn't check that email all that much. If you like the program, share it on various Star Wars forums and social media groups. How about writing a review on iTunes, letting potential listeners know about the amazing role-playing and editing quality, even when you have a guest GM? The show's made possible by the generous pledges of our Patreon subscribers. Thank you to every last one of you. We'll have big surprises next year for you guys. First, look for Summoned, Garrett's FFG Hut Inc. campaign finale to be released in time for your New Year's Day game. And you also unlocked a video series, and Garrett has big plans for that one. If you like what you're hearing, please help Garrett make ends meet so he can continue to produce these podcasts. Go to patreon.com/Garrett Crow. That's 2 R's, 2 T's, and 1 E at the end of Crow. Thank you for your contribution. It makes a world of difference. Now, where you have set up the live play here, are you looking for me to kind of do a bit of an intro?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So what you're about to launch into is the beginning of the live play of the Barris Family Adventure module, which is my tentative name that I had in my notes way back when. We've just split the party. I've just taken over the reins and setting up behind the desk, and you're going to pick up with me, kind of giving the players a little bit of expectations about what's going to change. And you might hear from a datapad segment just after that, kind of explaining a little bit about what you heard. So first datapad segment is 2 minutes, 9 seconds. Setting expectations. Since we'd spent so much time with Garrett running the game, the first thing I wanted to do was make sure that everyone knew that I wasn't Garrett. At this point, the game had come to have its own feel and personality with some house rules that we had been using for some time. I wanted to establish to the players what I was going to use for the rules, which ones I were keeping, what the feel of the sessions I was looking for was, so on. Setting up expectations on both sides is important to making sure things go smoothly, especially if you're going to have someone else come in and run the game entirely for a time. Next one, 8 minutes, 2 seconds. The Find Sirona Skill Challenge. So I wanted to do something a little different here. Somewhat in homage to using video game RPGs where you'll have numerous characters to talk to in town. I set up a big map that I had of Tatooine. All around it, I put a huge amount of minis. In my notes, I had for each of them names, a quick personality trait, and something that they knew about what happened to Sirona. Some had small pieces of the puzzle, some had big ones, and some didn't really have anything. I put the PC minis on the map and set them free to move about and talk to whoever they wanted. They could see everything on the map with no fog of war or theater of the mind kind of clouding anything. So the game and the narrative was really in their hands, as it was solely their decisions on who to talk to and what they would do that would push the narrative forward. And I enjoyed it quite a bit. I think it went over pretty well. Next one is 40 minutes, 6 seconds. The Stokely Spray Stick. The Stokely Spray Stick is an interesting weapon that can be found on... Oh boy. Let's start that one over. 40 minutes, 6 seconds. The Stokely Spray Stick. The Stokely Spray Stick is an interesting weapon that can be found on page 100 of the Force Unleashed campaign guide. A restricted item with a high starting price of 14,000 credits, the Stokely is a unique piece of gear. It's inaccurate, so you can't use it at long range, and it doesn't have a lethal setting. What it does have is 3d8 of stun damage, and as the mist it fires turns into a strong webbing, it gives you the ability to initiate a grab or grapple at range. This means that you can tie your foes up from afar without having to get close enough to deal with whatever trouble they brought to the fight. Josh had been looking for an interesting weapon that could give Carson some combat options while maintaining his pacifist ideals, so I figured I'd give him the opportunity to pick up a Stokely during this adventure. Next one, 50 minutes, 44 seconds. The Dark Side Point. This is a follow-up from the beginning of the session where I outlined the expectations that I was giving these sessions. Essentially what's going on here is Platt, played by Garrett, went to a group of Jawas and wanted to buy one of their robes, the shirts right off their back. When they declined her offer, she pulled a blaster and basically at gunpoint cowed them into giving her one. Now, holding someone up at gunpoint for something trivial warranted a dark side point in my book, and I think it was a good example early in the game of how I was looking to have the sessions go as the temporary GM in Garrett's place. Next one, 1 hour, 22 minutes, 32 seconds. The Doctor is in. Carson's epic treat injury check here is due to the very helpful Medic Prestige class found on page 52 of the Force Unleashed campaign guide. To gain access, you must be at least 7th level, have knowledge of life sciences and treat injury skills as trained, and have the surgical expertise feat. Once you have all of that, the medic class offers up a number of ways to make you the savior of the battlefield. You have access to the advanced medicine talent tree, as well as gaining powerful medical secrets at every even level. Here, Carson shows off the improved first aid medical secret, which gives 1 additional hit point for every point by which the medic beat the treat injury DC. It won't be the last time we see this in action, and it's a great showcase for how the medic can really change things up during or after a battle. And the last one I have is for the very end. The road goes on. The PCs have talked their way through the denizens of Tatooine to find clues about Serona, and it led them to a serious brawl in a desert cantina. We're starting to see what lengths Barriss will go to when trying to help his friends, and we're one step closer to finding out exactly where Serona is and just what's going on with her and Barriss's family. So those are my data segments.
Okay.
And let me get back to the thing here. Finally, we would be totally remiss if we didn't talk about the impact of episode 7. As of this recording, I'm about an hour or so away from seeing it for my 3rd time, so that should tell you something. It's a very interesting time to be a Star Wars fan. I mean, personally, I am a fan of the prequels, so I don't feel like I've had to wait 25 years for the next great Star Wars movie. I know a lot of people who do feel that way, and for this, episode 7 is the best thing ever that could have possibly happened, and they go nuts. I think it's a great movie. I think that it showcases everything that Star Wars can be. But for me, when I kind of view it in an overall Star Wars sense, I think it's going to come right about in the middle. That doesn't mean that I don't like it. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't go see it as many times as you can possibly fit in, because it is that fantastic. It does make me feel like a kid again. But I think in the long run, this is going to kind of end up as a decent Star Wars installment. But what really excites me is the implications that it has. I think that episode 7 likes to play it safe a little bit in terms of what it's trying to do. But what it sets up for our future is what's really exciting to me. The characters are interesting, and there's so much that we can learn about them. The state of the galaxy and what's going on, and just what the next step is in terms of, galactic-wide fun and adventure that we can have. There's a whole new galaxy of Star Wars out there for us to experience, and I think even more than The Force Awakens itself, I am very excited about what the future holds. As a Star Wars GM, it opens up plenty of new opportunities for storylines to be set in the 30 years between episode 6 and 7, with new people, characters, and organizations like the First Order. It gives GMs all sorts of tools for, shady dealings and what's been going on. And I think that hopefully Fantasy Flight will capitalize on some of this new material to release for supplements for this new era. But even if you're still playing Saga Edition, there's enough rules there that you can adapt pretty easily to what this new era of Star Wars has brought us. So thanks for tuning in to this episode of Barefoot Tour Guide Star Wars Threat Detected. I'll be with you next time as I continue ruling the galaxy. Running the game. Until next time, this is Smuggler's Paradise saying the Force has awakened. Good night.
Excellent, man.
All right, good deal. I had a lot of fun listening through that audio.
You didn't even get through the sound effects.
Oh no, it's a blast from the past, that's for sure.
With the Tatooine effects all through there, and every time we're in the cantina, of course, you have the cantina music going in the background.
Yeah, it's interesting, hearing myself as a GM then compared to now, and the things that I'm doing differently, and it's just very interesting.
That might be something you want to talk about on a future data pad.
Yeah, I'll definitely keep that in mind. It might be a good kind of wrap up for the whole thing, maybe even.
Yeah.
We finished that One Ring campaign this past weekend.
How'd it go?
Fantastic. Rob was crying like you see in anime where the tears are just streaming down their face. So I think I did something right.
Very cool. Did you kill them all off?
I didn't. I felt that Lord of the Rings that was not quite appropriate for the company. I did make them roll for their friends though. They're non-canon friends that I made up. So I had them roll just like battle skills to see if they would live or not. Oh no, I didn't even do that. I just I had them roll a d6 and I said odds or evens, and luckily they both guessed the right ones, and you know they all lived, and I don't know, it went really well. That was definitely a game where I used a lot of that music, and it worked. Really well. Yeah.
I've got a soundtrack of lute and auto harp music composed specifically in inspiration of Middle-earth called Memories of Middle-earth that I use in the background that just feels like it is being right there in the actual place.
Yeah, I have at least the basic versions of all the soundtracks for the movies. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of pulled a lot from there and used a bunch of different things. And kind of towards the end of the campaign, I started using Audacity just a little bit so that I could pull out certain segments or things just to get like a bed going for certain themes and everything. But it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I don't know if we have another one of those campaigns in our future anytime soon, at least. But
how'd you feel about it system-wise after going through it in full?
Like Rob said last time, it makes walking fun. So that's something.
I describe it as Oregon Trail.
Yeah, it sure can be. It's interesting because it's it can be a very lethal system.
Yes.
But that's not necessarily wrong, and I think that it gives you enough tools to tweak it enough where you can maintain that threat of lethality without necessarily killing your players all the time. Mm-hmm. And then also, like, I watched the movies just before I started running the campaign, and I was like, except for the giant battles, the Fellowship runs from every single fight. So, like, maybe Lord of the Rings is not the game where you're supposed to stand up to every single orc that crosses your path. Fly, you fools.
You're supposed to know the threats that you can handle in there. I mean, the first game I ever saw that was Deadlands, where it actually has a sidebar that says, wait, don't you talk about levels and appropriate threats and how to build encounters? No. These are the random tables. These are the characters, and the characters should know if they can't survive a fight, and they should know how to run.
Yeah, it is very interesting. I mean, there were times where I hit them real hard, and times when I didn't. And I talked to Rob and Josh about at least the travel rolls, and they were like, it wasn't too crazy hard, but at the very least they were always concerned about it, which I think is the appropriate feeling at least. But I used the in the Rivendell book they have stats for the Witch King, so that was their final boss since they were going to Angmar. I named it the Steward of Angmar because the Witch King is down south fighting in Mordor, but I used that, and he is a tough guy.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with the stat block at all, but he has an ability where just like your level of success is reduced by 1. So if you hit without a 6, it misses. If you hit with a single 6, it's a regular hit. An extraordinary success goes down to a great, unless you get a Gandalf rune. It's really interesting.
And they survived that?
They did. He was the only enemy they were fighting, and there were 5 of them. So. It definitely got them really hard, though, and they had to make quite some use of the one guy's Inspire abilities. He used his rally comrades quite a bit to get them some endurance back during that fight.
I threw a cave troll at them a couple sessions ago, which are really, really difficult creatures. Yeah. And I had established he was kind of like waiting out for the sun to set inside this tomb that connected to Erebor through some tunnels, and they got up to him and attacked. And Mary was playing in because we didn't have a full cast, and she came up with the idea of taking her hammer and beating the sides of the tomb so that sunlight came in, like the end of From Dusk Till Dawn, creating areas where the troll couldn't spend his hate and couldn't do the half of his abilities.
That's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, so she just kept on bashing him as he kept on moving, trying to keep him from being able to do it, and also burning his hate up as he got burned by the sun.
Yeah, I threw a troll at them twice over the course of the campaign, both kind of towards the end, and very luckily, every time the troll attacked them, it missed. So they kind of squeaked by on that one, but
Cool.
yeah, so it was a good time.
All right. I will let you go so that you can enjoy episode 7 for the third time.
Yeah, we'll see if I catch anything new this time around.
Cool, man. And your personal thought is Rey Luke's daughter?
She's either Luke's daughter or she was like a very young girl that he was training when Kylo went crazy and destroyed everyone, and he managed to save her.
And Luke kind of blocked her memory, so she's partially trained.
I don't know if I necessarily buy the whole mind wipe thing. I mean, she was pretty young when we see that kind of flashback of her leaving. So, I mean, I don't remember too much from when I was a kid. So, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Somewhere in between those two things, maybe.
Yeah.
But there's some sort of connection.
Yeah.
I will say that was the most bummerish part of the movie, is that I wanted to see Luke so bad. And he's only in there for that little bit, you know?
Mm-hmm. But what a moment it is.
Yeah. And next time.
It's going to be, we get to see Rey get trained.
Yeah. So I think, I called it before the movie came out. I was like, Poe is going to be like the new super cool kick-ass guy. But I really like Finn. He is really intriguing to me.
I don't trust Poe.
No, you don't think so?
I don't trust him in that it's too shady of how he got out of that crash.
Well, I mean, it's the same way that Finn got out of it. I think he just got thrown in a different direction.
I think he got captured and is a double agent now.
Oh, that's the difference between you and me, Garrett. I want to think the best of people.
I want to think the best of people, but I'm waiting. No, that's too suspiciously easy of a plot that they did. That's the writer in me going, no, they did something.
I guess. I mean, he's good enough of a pilot. He could have screwed them over anytime. He could have been like, "Oh, we can't get into that reactor thing." So Starkiller base could have stayed up and running, destroyed the whole resistance. Then that'd have been the best thing, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. All right, Garrett. Well, I will let you go.
All right, man. Have a wonderful night.
Yeah, you too. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.